Welcome back to the Health Marketing Collective, where strong leadership meets marketing excellence. I'm your host, Sarah Payne, and I'm bringing you fascinating conversations with some of the industry's top marketing minds. Today, we're diving into a topic that every leader, marketer, and innovator wrestles with: how to build a culture that gets things done. My guest is Laura Cave, an experienced early-stage health tech marketer who excels at bringing healthcare products to market and healthcare stories to life. Laura is currently Chief Brand Officer at Paytient, and she's passionate about making healthcare more affordable and accessible for all. If there's one thing Laura is known for, it's making things happen. From securing powerhouse partnerships to building new tools on the fly, Laura is someone who doesn't wait around for permission. She moves fast, finds a way, and delivers results. And here's what I find fascinating. Laura has consistently found herself in cultures that value activation. From the Knot to Oscar Health to Paytient, she's worked in environments where things don't just sit in a backlog. They get built, tested, and launched. And I have a feeling that's no coincidence. So today, Laura and I will be unpacking how marketing leaders can create an activation-driven culture, one that removes roadblocks, empowers teams, and fosters innovation. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm super excited to have you here today and to dive into all of this rich experience you have being inside of cultures that value activation. Let's start there by defining what we mean when we say activation. I think it's a word that can get thrown around a lot in marketing and in business, but in your view, what does an activation mindset really mean, Laura?
Absolutely. I know that everything in marketing can be called an activation, and that doesn't mean that it's having an impact. And so what I have pressed my teams to think about is, how do we not just do marketing things, but how do we actually have a business impact? How do we have an effect on the value that we are building for our shareholders, for ourselves as partial owners of this business? And by keeping your eyes on that, it can really save you from doing lots of marketing things that don't really matter. Because in marketing, you can do anything, but you should be choosing the things that are really making an impact. And part of that is like understanding what is the job that needs to be done, and what's the fastest way that I can make that happen, even if it's outside of my marketing lane or the marketing tool sets that I have currently, because sometimes the solution is just past those boundaries. So, yeah.
Oh, it's so great. Love that definition and that perspective. And I know that a lot of your mindset comes from your early days, early on in your career, your time at the Knot. Which really built a brand that brides truly cared about. And they did that through really remarkable ways without spending a lot of money on advertising. And what did you learn there at the Knot about the value of community building and moving fast that still influences you today?
Oh my gosh, so much. I really had the honor of getting hired by the Knot's two of the Knot's original founders, David Liu and Carly Roney. And in working with them, I learned so much about what it looks like to just make something happen, because they had done it and they were still doing it. When I joined in 2006, they had been around for 9 years. They had consolidated the industry and become the number one multimedia wedding brand. A lot of people don't know this, but they went public in 1999. They were part of the first generation of major .coms, and they rode the 2001 recession. I was there for the 2008 recession, and they grew revenue every year.
Wow.
Even through those tough years, even as a media business, which is saying a lot. And it was because of the way that they had structured their business. So what was really fascinating, and I keep looking back on the Knot and understanding it better as time goes on, because they're so early in a lot of what they were doing that it didn't have a name yet. But now I look back and realize, oh, what they were doing was called product-led growth. And of course, it's like all the rage now, but we didn't have a marketing team for years. We didn't have a media budget. We didn't spend money on advertising. We didn't buy our traffic from Google because we were selling that traffic to advertisers. And if they could just go buy it from Google, we knew that was a death sentence. So we needed to create value that would organically attract the audience that we were serving. And we needed to serve them better than anybody else. And we needed to serve them in every single channel where they were looking for information. So the classic example is that in the early days, they had the not.com. And then I think some investors had told them, you know what, you guys should advertise so people know to come to the not.com. You should advertise in the wedding magazines like Brides. So they asked for a proposal and they looked at how much money it was going to be. And they said, shoot, we could make our own magazine for this. And so they did.
Wow.
And they didn't have that much money. So they had dress forms so that they would show the dresses on dress forms and they wouldn't have to pay models. I mean, it was very minimum viable product, another term that was not around yet when they were doing it. But they really took that and ran with it. And then another example later on, they needed to continue to generate organic traffic. And they did that by solving a classic problem in wedding planning, which is for the bride's hairstyle. So they created a hair tool that would allow you to upload a photo of yourself and then switch all the different hairstyles to see which one looked best for your big day. And of course, this was way before Facetune and AI. And
we've all done it now. We've all done it now, but
all the time. AI will make your headshot for you and change your hair color. Yeah. But, anyway, it was extremely successful at the time. And all throughout that, the thing that Carly especially was so brilliant about was just how brand obsessed we were. She taught us all, that everyone is a marketer and that a brand is a promise and you have to keep your brand promises. And when you do that, you build a relationship with people. And that really was extremely powerful at the Knot. The ladies that would connect on their online message boards, because nobody wants to hear about your wedding more than another bride. They would plan their weddings together. All the brides getting married in June of 2012 would plan their weddings together on the Knot's message boards and talk about their mother-in-laws to be and all of that. And then they would become such good, legitimate friends that they would invite each other to each other's weddings. They would actually attend each other's weddings in real life. They called themselves the Naughties, and they would have naughty get-togethers at the local TGI Fridays. And that's always been the pinnacle of what I've aspired to create when we're working with brands, is something that people want to identify with, that they want to communicate with others, that builds a tribe of people who care about the same things. And so that's inspired me all along my way in what eventually became a journey in healthcare marketing.
Yeah, such fascinating stories. And, we've done some work together, but I haven't heard some of these things from you. And I think to myself, how lucky were you? Right. And I'm sure you feel the same way. How lucky were you to have gone through and experienced some of these things and, that were well ahead of their time. And frankly, are core principles of smart content marketing and thought leadership today, right? Deliver value to your audience and they won't feel like they're even being marketed to, right?
No,
but they will
because you're not selling them.
Right.
You're serving them. Exactly. Yeah. There's a whole tribe of us that count David and Carly as our business mom and dad. Because they really taught so many of us. And David would always say, okay, it's time to pull a rabbit out of a hat. What can we make? What can we do? And seeing that modeled was a big part of how I've been able to do some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned earlier, you also spent some time at Oscar Health. Mm-hmm. What did you carry forward from your time at the Knot to Oscar? Was there a moment or a project at Oscar where you really helped turn an idea into reality on a really rapid timeline?
Yeah. There were a lot of things that we were experimenting with. I joined during the second open enrollment they'd ever had for the ACA marketplaces. And I was originally on the phone with members for about 6 months, helping them sign up for their plans. So I was a licensed producer. I didn't know when I signed up for the job that I would have to get a license. And so I had to take a very intimidating test. And then I was on the phone helping people understand and choose their health plan. And I just became absolutely obsessed with solving this problem. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges facing our generation is how we are going to afford healthcare in the United States. And that's been driving me for the last 10 years, ever since that time. And there were a ton of brilliant people there during those early years and still today, of course. And we played with all kinds of interesting things. At that time, it was new that you could stay on your parents' insurance plan until you were 26. And so I found out that you could buy a list from the United States Postal Service of people that included their birthdays. And so I was like, I think we should send them birthday cards and say, happy birthday. You have to get your own insurance now. We can help.
You're a grown up. It's official.
Yeah. I don't know if that one ever went anywhere, but I was really jazzed about it for a minute. But another one that comes to mind is we were looking at ways that we can incentivize people to get their flu shot. Obviously, in a community like New York City, where you're on the subway and passing by people, and there's a lot of germs exchanged in that, as we all know now that we are sort of post-COVID, but this was way before that. And what they had done, Oscar was extremely innovative, and they had already done a kind of rewards program for their flu shot in the fall. And they had given out, I don't remember what it was, maybe a $5 gift card to Amazon or something like that. And I had this hypothesis that we could donate something charitable for the action of getting a flu shot and potentially have people do the right thing for themselves and others, and not have to pay people to do the right thing. And so to work on this, I got in touch with UNICEF and learned that they had a program where they were funding, resourcing local crews of doctors to visit children who were in refugee camps, because this was during the time of the Syrian refugee crisis. And the whole world was very gripped by the scenes of people trying to make their way to Europe during this time. And there were a lot of really big humanitarian needs. And so it was a no-brainer to partner with them. And so the pitch was, if you get your flu shot, a child will be seen by a doctor and get a medical exam. And we ran the campaign in January and February, which is not the prime time for flu shot season, but we were trying to convert the laggards, not the early adopters. And we did see, I think, thousands of flu shots from our members during that time. And what we were able to do was to measure how much did this activity bump the trend off of the norm. And it turned out that the charitable program achieved actually more than the cash rewards program. And I was really proud that my hypothesis was correct.
Yes, your hypothesis was right. That's amazing. I love that story. And this experience you had, exposure you had to helping people get care affordably now has become a through line in your career and your current role at Paytient. And one of the things that I admire about your current company, Paytient, is that when you see a need, when the company, the team, the executives see a need, you guys go and build the thing. And a perfect example of that is the work you did. Again, we're talking about enrollment here, but around enrollment for the Medicare prescription payment plan, which is known as M3P for short. For anyone who's unfamiliar with this is a new benefit that just launched in January that helps Medicare beneficiaries better afford their prescription drug costs by giving them more time to pay. And millions of seniors are eligible for this program, but CMS has done very little to educate people about how to enroll, which leaves people just sort of confused. They either don't know they have access to this program, or they know about it, but they don't know how to enroll in it. Take us behind the scenes. Paytient saw this gap, stepped in to make enrollment easier. Talk about the solution that you developed and a bit about how that solution went from idea to execution.
Yeah. And I think it's worth even backing up a little bit before M3P. Before I get into what we've done there, this is, again, being modeled at the leadership level. Our CEO was a hospital administrator for 15 years, and he really saw the impact of uncompensated care and what it did to the health system, that the collections department was bigger than the surgery department, and that we could do amazing things for the health of a patient, but then we would be saddling them with a financial burden that they didn't have before. And it just didn't sit right. And he did something about it, and he built the patient card, and he linked his own bank account to it, that people were spending off of his own money in the beginning.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Brian Worley is our CEO and founder, and he's the biggest believer in the need for access and affordability solutions. And he built the core product, which is the purple patient Visa card that you see on our website. But then along came another type of partner that was building an alternative style of health plan that would pay the provider upfront the portion that was the patient's responsibility and bill the patient later for that. And it was a different application of our technology, but we did it in a white label kind of capacity through an API, and they were able to use our technology to fund the financing and operate the financing portion of the health plan. And so that was running for years. Come to learn in 2022 that the Medicare prescription payment plan was passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And then in 2023, we saw the first CMS guidance about how this program should work. And we looked at it and we said, that's what our technology already does.
Yeah,
and
that's so
because we had been willing to solve a problem in the market early, we're finding now all kinds of applications for that. So that still is our core business. But as part of that, we looked at the Medicare prescription payment plan and said, we've got an awareness problem here where our technology is being used by 40% of the market. All Medicare Part D prescription drug plans are required to offer this option to be billed over time for your out-of-pocket costs for your prescription drugs. And it's going to be incredibly impactful for a huge part of the market that just appreciates the flexibility to be able to pay at the end of the month after they get their check, or to be able to pay over a few months to satisfy, an expense related to a new or unexpected drug. There's just so much flexibility in the program that I think once seniors learn it, they're really going to love it. And, but in the meantime, we've got to make sure that they know about it. So we've got an awareness issue. And then we also started to hear that there was friction around the actual sign up process, which sits with the health plans, and is facilitated by phone, mail, online. But mail is slow. The phone experience, we heard from some brokers that the average time to help someone sign up for M3P was a 90-minute three-way call with the plans. Yeah. And
terrible experience.
Terrible experience, really inefficient and costly for both the broker and the plan. And then a lot of the online opt-in locations were sort of buried in websites or behind a password or just not really easily accessible. So we wanted to solve the awareness problem, but other than just sort of brand advertising for a public program, we weren't really in a position to be able to add more value. So we kept thinking about that. And what we realized was that there was a way that we could pull together all the paper forms, the digital version of all the paper opt-in forms for every Part D plan, because it was important to us that if we built an opt-in tool, that it would work for the whole market, not just our clients.
Smart.
And we pulled all of that together and created a way for someone to fill out the form as basically a digital PDF that could be electronically signed securely and transmitted securely to the plans. And we were using their form that they made publicly available with all of its requisite terms and conditions and everything else. And this was an absolute team effort. The people who figured this out, that was not me, but they figured it out and they built it very quickly because they were able to use some off-the-shelf tools that weren't around. You know, in the Knots days, you had to actually code your hair tool yourself.
Sure.
Now there are enough tools that you could bolt together an experience like this in a matter of weeks, not months. And so we did that over basically the month of December. And by early January, we had a landing page. And our marketing team had previously invested in really flexible web tools that would allow us to spin up a landing page in a week. We had video, we had other downloadable assets, FAQs, things like that. And all of a sudden we had a product experience. And what was brilliant about that is it solved the need for a real CTA to be able to see a call to action, to be able to see the conversion and measure the return on our ad spend, not purely as brand awareness, but now as actually driving opt-ins.
Yes.
And so from a direct to consumer standpoint, that unlocked a whole bunch of ways that I could look at how do we drive traffic here? How do we convert that traffic, and including the brand awareness along the way. But secondly, it's allowed us to have a lot of conversations all across the pharmacy value chain, because we realized that if someone learns about this from their pharmacist, they need to opt in, and it's going to take at least 24 hours, if not longer, to get officially opted into the program because of the way the systems work. And if there was a way for us to get someone opted in before they went to the pharmacy, perhaps at their doctor's office, or maybe early on in the process with the pharmacy, before they say, okay, your prescription's ready, come get it. If they could receive those messages, educate themselves while a prior authorization is happening or some other process is happening, they're much more likely to show up to the pharmacy already opted in. And then they don't have to come back later. They can get their drug as early as it's available. And in many cases, that's very, very important for the health of the patient. And so we've begun exploring not just marketing campaigns, but other types of distribution for the tool, which sometimes is marketing with a partner, but sometimes it's just a collaboration. And in many instances, we've actually seen areas where this tool can embed inside other pharmacy workflows and be upsold, and we can reap some revenue off of it, which we never intended to do.
Yes.
But it's really meeting a need in the market to have a simple and easy way to opt someone into the program, no matter which plan they happen to have as their prescription drug coverage. So I just said a lot there, but that's what we're in the middle of right now. And we're really excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, this is just incredible. It's so many smart strategic decisions, right? Began with this, okay, there's this problem, which is people don't know about this, and these forms are scattered all over in different places and people can't find them. Let's collate them. And how many forms are we talking about, Laura?
Like 1,000.
1,000 forms into one, right? So you're looking at this as there's like a practical problem we need to solve here. But how many marketers have sat in this exact position, right? Where it's like, we have millions of people we need to reach from an awareness generating standpoint, but we can't really measure beyond reach, impressions, maybe some clicks. What happens there? There's a cliff, right? There's no conversion. We can't figure out whether the work we're doing here in marketing is making an impact. So you built the conversion mechanism, right? You're helping the consumer, but you're also helping better measure your marketing efforts. And then it unlocks these partnership opportunities that you never even were considering, that is potentially leading to new revenue opportunities, right? Like if there wasn't a better example for, why to build an activation culture, right? And just dive in with both feet all in, this is it, right? Like this is just such a smart example.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, it sounds really tidy when I tell the story this way, but really, actually, It was a lot of work. And it was me as the marketer saying, we can't do that. There's no ROI. How do I know what my return on ad spend is? And then others were thinking about the problem with me. Others were thinking about the problem without me. And building the tool was not even my idea at all. And we have product thinkers. We have a pharmacist on staff who knows everybody in the industry, who's gotten us quickly into these sort of corporate development conversations. And it's wild because you're talking to legal, you're talking to product, you're talking to, you're trying to understand what all the acronyms are in an industry that we, quite frankly, have not worked this deeply inside of the pharmacy operational stack. And now here we are slowly piecing all of these things together and understanding, oh, we could add value right there. And those applications and those exploratory conversations have been really cool, but it would not have happened without, the product work that was done by others on my team, not even my team in our organization, and the pharmacy expertise and know-how from my colleague, Jeff. And then a bunch of tinkering, Kelsey, or my colleague, built the tool. And there were so many moments where she said, I ran into a dead end, but I just wrote some Python script and it fixed it. And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah, that's
it is
amazing.
Truly, it's a culture. Like, it's not just me. It's like everybody around me is figuring it out, and being someone who is willing to hang in there when you encounter these roadblocks, and then find a solution somehow, some way, through some research, ask Gemini or ChatGPT, whatever you got to do. And when you keep at it, then you come out with something like this, and you're like, oh, obviously this is what we should do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, not every company and culture is going to have the same startup mentality that Paytient does. But I don't want people listening to this to think, I can't have this, or I can't build this same activation mindset into my team or my organization, because they can, and that's the whole point of us having this conversation, is to inspire others to lean in. And what I heard in what you were just saying, which it starts by asking a bunch of questions. Right? Yeah. It starts by asking a bunch of questions that lead you further down this pathway of exploration, where you then start to connect dots together, right? Mm-hmm. Linking arms with other smart people from cross-functional different leadership areas across the organization to say, there's an idea here, right? Mm-hmm. Let's get together. Let's grab a conference room. Let's map out what this could look like, and being willing to go there. And I wondered if there was advice you had in terms of, for others overcoming challenges, or other sort of best practices that people might be able to leverage from your experiences with this.
Yeah, I think it's just honestly a matter of focus. You can choose, what you're focused on. And if you're focused on doing marketing things versus having business impact, and understanding the business problems that your business is facing, and understanding what is the real job that needs to be done here. Sometimes it's not even a marketing job, or it's they think it's a marketing job, but really it'd be better solved with a product or a partnership, and challenging yourself to think freely enough about that, and pull in your product and corporate development partners, because sometimes it is that exercise of, should we buy, build, or rent this capability, And if you're thinking like an owner, and you're thinking about the business impact, and I think a lot of companies are using OKRs, objectives and key results. They're getting organized around executing in ways that point to like that key result. How do I know if I've been successful? This key result will be true. And doing that exercise, and then relentlessly focusing on that. And then I think also just like knowing that with having the confidence in yourself, knowing that a lot of times when things are hard, it's because nobody knows how to do these things.
Right.
And there isn't somebody out there. I think a lot of us can feel imposter syndrome when we run into business challenges where you run into all these dead ends, or you have to like invent your way out of a sticky spot. I used to think like, gosh, there's probably somebody out there that knows it better than me. But I've learned over and over again, like you are where you are because you are the one to figure it out. And ironically, I would talk to peers who maybe share some of our investors, and I'd every once in a while have an opportunity. And by the way, I had to tell myself I'm learning. And once I put myself in a growth mindset, and someone has an answer to something that I don't know, and I think they'd be willing to tell me. Like, people are so kind and so generous. If you ask a question and they can offer their expertise, it makes them feel awesome. Don't rob them of that opportunity. Because you're too busy feeling insecure. I'm talking to myself, And so I just put myself in growth mindset. And then I talk to these peers who just look like they have it all together. And then they're like, well, we're doing this and that and this and that. And I'm like, oh, it's exactly what I'm doing. Okay.
You're having the same challenges and struggles that I am.
Yeah. Yes. And then you realize you're not alone. And that's worth its weight in gold. So, yeah.
Oh, all of that was so great. I'm going to have to go back and replay that for myself, because there's just so many great nuggets that I think apply to not just marketing leaders, but so many aspects of life, in terms of, you are where you are for a reason. Right? You've gotten yourself there, and being comfortable with the discomfort and being vulnerable and willing to ask others for advice and help. And just like you said, I've witnessed that too. People are so willing to offer it and so willing to help other people out that if you're just willing to ask and take it, you can learn so much to be able to apply to the situation that you're in.
That's right.
Well, I think that's a good place for us to end the conversation. But before we can actually officially conclude, I've got some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
Just give me your gut reaction on these. What is your go-to move, Laura, when you need to unblock a stalled project?
Ask for advice.
Perfect. And what's a piece of leadership advice that you live by?
Oh, that's a good question. Leadership advice. I mean, I'm a big believer that you have to be willing to be vulnerable yourself as a leader. And when you're vulnerable yourself about the ways that you're growing, you give other people permission to grow with you.
Yes. Love that so much. Give us a myth about marketing or innovation that you wish would just die.
Oh boy. I don't believe that marketing can overcome product market fit problems. And I would love it if there were ways to identify when marketing was putting lipstick on something that wasn't working and finding ways to do that. I heard it said once that marketing makes a misfit product fail faster, actually. And so I think product market fit is probably the most important thing, and sharpening that value proposition so that it's clear that you're solving a problem and you're clear who that problem is for, who that solution is for. That's the heart of it. And getting that right is really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. What's one of your favorite books or podcasts that's shaped your thinking on growth and impact and activation?
Yeah. So there's actually one I meant to mention earlier called Impact Players. It's by Liz Wiseman, and it is all about how to orient yourself around noticing what is the job to be done, how to step up and lead, when to step back and let others lead. I found it to be incredibly insightful and really resonant of the experience that I had in growing organizations. And I always recommend it to everybody on my team. There's one other, if I can sneak one other in, it's called Obviously Awesome. and it's by April Dunford. And it's all about that value prop piece that I was just mentioning, how to actually position products. And she gives you a really big lay of the land in terms of what all your choices are. And I think it's just one of the most practical marketing books I've ever read.
Well, I haven't read either one of those, so I'm going to have to cue me filling my cart here and going to be reading those probably over the weekend.
Awesome.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. So many great stories and examples. Before we wrap, let's leave our listeners with one big takeaway. If someone is listening right now, feeling frustrated by maybe slow decision making or bureaucracy inside of their organization or internal hurdles, what's one thing that they could do tomorrow to start creating a more activation-driven culture?
The thing that comes to mind is embracing change. That change is hard, but change is also a gift, because whatever's wrong today can be better tomorrow with change. And I think sometimes it's the changes you cause that are some of the best ones. So think about what you can change, what you can do differently. And that is going to get you unstuck, or even if it doesn't get you unstuck, it'll change where you're standing. And that will give you a different view.
Ooh,
and then some
that.
Things that are a mystery, come into view, and suddenly you have an idea of where to go next.
That's so great. Well, thanks so much for being here, Laura. Where can listeners connect with you and also learn more about Paytient?
Yeah, so you can visit paytient.com. That's Paytient. You can visit us and follow us on LinkedIn. And you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm just Laura Cave. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. And thanks to everyone for tuning in to the Health Marketing Collective, where strong leadership meets marketing excellence, because the future of healthcare depends on it. We'll see you next time.